Tristan, let's talk about the Kraft-Belichick debacle. Obviously, we know from the reports that have come out that really Robert Kraft has sabotaged Belichick. At the Falcons, we know for sure, but also the Commanders is now a possibility. One quote I read from the ESPN article was, Kraft found Bill to be extremely difficult and obstinate and kind of stubborn, and in the end, not worthy of his trust and also very, very, very arrogant. There's been bad blood here. The 2022 season, I think Kraft would have been gone, Belichick would have been gone if it wasn't for Jonathan Kraft, Robert Kraft's son, fighting for him to stay. Even though Jonathan Kraft is one of the biggest detractors of Bill Belichick, for some reason, he fought for his job. He wound up staying. My question to you is, was this a concerted effort by Kraft to block Belichick from getting a head coaching position in what seems to be a vengeful run by Robert Kraft?
I don't know how you can look at it anything other than that. I mean, even in your setup, your premise, you use the word sabotage. I think sabotage, by definition, is almost vengeful, right? Like, I guess you could sabotage and not be vengeful, but like you would have to have a reason for sabotaging, and Kraft certainly does, I guess. I mean, not that I justify it. I really like Robert Kraft. After I read The Dynasty, the book that recent Apple series was based on, it made me like Robert Kraft a lot more. I always liked him. I've heard good things about him. Everybody says he's a nice guy. I understand this is a thing that happens in sports, and I think Albert Breer even said, if you think this is just happening with Belichick, you're crazy. It happens all the time. I really look at someone less for that. Like, I know me and you don't have that much wealth or power or anything, but I couldn't imagine being in a position where I have had basically an employee who has brought me, 6 championships, like has been made my program the pinnacle of success in my business for 2 decades, and then it sours at the end, and me be so petty as to prevent him from getting another job. I think that's gross. And it's the only word I can find for it. But I think the reason is this, and then I'll throw it back to you. This is why. I think because Brady left, and Brady went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl, and then Robert Kraft knows if Bill goes somewhere and is successful, well, he's going to think in the public eye, well, who's left to point the finger at? It's like if Tom goes to Tampa and wins a Super Bowl, if Bill leaves and wins a Super Bowl, well, maybe Robert, could have held them together. And I think he's just trying to protect his reputation at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you also got to think, after 24 seasons of being together and doing football together, to use the word very 3 times is obviously, there's some bad blood there, right? Like you can't deny it. What's funny is I don't think that Bill Belichick deserves any of this from Robert Kraft. I think it's absurd for Kraft to go and act like a child and do something like this. I mean, he's thwarted all of Belichick's chances, it seems. Obviously, like I said, we know the Falcons happened, but the Commanders, it's funny that the owner talks to Robert Kraft, gets off the phone and decides, yeah, we're not going with Bill Belichick. We don't. He doesn't really fit our kind of schematics of what we want as a head coach.
The Atlanta one is more egregious because Bill Belichick almost had the job locked up. I mean, the job was his. Like, they were ready to hire him. So if it wasn't for that call to Robert Kraft, I think he is the Atlanta Falcons head coach. In that ESPN article, sources literally close to Bill said Bill thought he had it locked up. Like, it was basically a done deal. He had 2 interviews, meetings, whatever you want to say. You could point to the Commander's job and say, that one's not as bad because he didn't really come close to having it. I think it's because Harris in Washington reached out earlier. He reached out before they got to any interview process. Kraft threw him under the bus. He said, no, thanks. In Atlanta, Arthur Blank had already gone through the 2 interviews. And then right before he was ready to hire, he said, let me reach out to Kraft and ask his opinion. And then he got thrown under the bus. So it probably could have gone longer in the Commanders situation, but I think Josh Harris just contacted Kraft earlier. I find it interesting that you said, I didn't know this, that Jonathan Kraft is one of the reasons that kept Bill Belichick there in 2022 or 2023. He would have been gone after 22. Jonathan Kraft is kind of a weasel, and he even kind of looks like a weasel. And I have no problem with people like getting stuff from their parents. Like, I'm not going to throw the nepotism thing around a lot, but he has, even though Jonathan Kraft has been there the whole time, his kind of arrogance towards Belichick and this whole thing, it really is like do you people realize how good you've had it? I don't see any reason why they do this other than they want to try and fight for credit. And they think if Bill succeeds somewhere else, it's going to make them look bad. That's the only reason I see them doing this. I can't find any other logic in it.
What do you make of Belichick not coaching this year? Do you think that he ever comes back? Do you ever think he coaches again? Or do you think he's probably going to go the way of the analyst route and kind of drop in like his buddy Nick Saban's doing?
I don't care what anyone says. It is absurd that Bill Belichick is not a head coach. Okay? It's crazy. I understand things went poorly at the end. I understand, let's be honest, he ruined Mac Jones. He made decisions in that organization that ruined Mac Jones' career. Say what you want about him. I'm not ever saying he was a top 15 quarterback. Mac Jones had an incredible rookie season. I mean, he took him to the playoffs. He was really, really good. And then, he hires Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to be the offensive coordinators, and he completely ruins the kid, ruins his career. That was ultimately the real downfall in New England, was that decision. But even without that, he is still one of the best coaches in the league. And you just have to go back to that Rams Super Bowl, their last Super Bowl they won together, him and Brady. He completely shut down McVay and the Rams. He is a brilliant defensive mind. He is a brilliant head coach. His faults came in being the GM and thinking he knew best. And he made mistakes.
What Belichick did to Mac Jones is inexcusable. However, what Kraft is doing to Belichick is also inexcusable. This is recess, man. This is what this is. It's kindergarten recess, and they're acting like a bunch of babies, a bunch of billionaire babies. And I don't like when there's such a negative light in the NFL, because I love the NFL, right? And something like this just really puts a stain on relationships. And personally, I think it's going to take a lot of time for these two to mend the wound here and heal.
I don't know if they will. I don't know. I mean,
they're old enough to where we.
Right.
I mean, maybe a deathbed forgiveness or something like that from Belichick if Kraft winds up on his deathbed first.
So you asked in your question when you were laying it out, you said, do I think Bill Belichick will coach again? That's kind of the specter hanging over this NFL season. I really think Bill Belichick is looming large over this NFL season. I think it's hard to go away a year and come back at his age. So part of me thinks it's unlikely. However, he is kind of hanging over the NFC East because Philly, Howie Roseman and them, or Jeff Lurie, whoever called him, and they said it wasn't piquing interest. They were just reaching out and checking on him because they have a good relationship. Okay, whatever. So we know the Sirianni thing in Philadelphia, if he doesn't course correct this season, he's gone. You could argue he should have been gone last year. Well, they would gladly bring in Bill. They've got a quarterback. They've got everything. The Giants, where he cut his teeth coaching, became a wizard of the NFL with those defenses back in the day, beating your beloved Bills in the Super Bowl. He would love to go back to New York and be a Giants head coach. If Daboll falters this year and they don't course correct as well, he could be there. And then the Holy Grail is the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy is not on a renewed contract. He's on the last year of his deal. NFL coaches are hardly ever coaching on the last year of their deal. So it's a very good chance McCarthy's gone. And the question is, would Jerry Jones pull the trigger on Bill Belichick? But that whole division, Bill Belichick is kind of looming over it, waiting to see what happens. I think if he becomes a coach again, it's one of those three teams.
I don't imagine Jerry Jones ever hiring Bill Belichick at the Dallas Cowboys.
Why?
I think that is not a match. That is not. He may love Belichick. He will not like Belichick's coaching style. Jerry Jones wants to have his hand in everything, and maybe it's a trust factor with Mike McCarthy. I don't know, but Jerry Jones has always been this way, right? Mm-hmm. So when you look at Belichick wants the complete control. He's a Nick Saban mindset type of guy. He's like, hey, look, I can fix it, but you're going to have to hand over everything to me.
I don't think he wants that anymore, though, because I think
he can say it all he wants, but I don't think it's true. I think after 24 seasons of coaching this way and being the GM, I'm not saying he wants to be the GM, but I'm saying he wants more control than Jerry Jones is willing to relinquish to be able to have him there. I think it would blow up the first year very quickly. Maybe I'm wrong. Matter of fact, I hope I am wrong, because I would prefer to see Belichick there than Mike McCarthy. I think Belichick's a much better coach. However, I think Jerry Jones and him it's two colors that just don't mix. I would be very surprised if that match worked, just with the way Jerry Jones runs his organization.